is a bizarre place. And it doesn't take very long. And I'm sure you've experienced this if you've stayed here for any length of time. You come in, you're fresh from the outside. You're off the boat, from the farm, still got shit on your shoes. You're in here, people are charmed by that you've still got shit on your shoes. They're charmed by the fresh approach you bring to it, and that's a real thing. But they're also stroking the shit out of you, licking you all over there. And that's kind of good for you too.
It's great.
But it doesn't take very long before you realize, or before it gets to you. It's cascading on you all the time. You can't get away from certain attitudes, from certain modes of behavior that this town and the industry dictate. And no matter how strong you are, when you come in off the farm with those convictions and a certain line of attack, no matter how strong you are going to be affected by this place. It's going to divert you from where you were going.
Sure.
You're going to be diverted. When I came over here, I was in my mid-20s.
Right.
The first time I really came over here. I had a whole bunch of weird paranoid suspicions about what the hell was going on because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't understand.
Right.
And nobody was really bothering to explain it to me.
They don't.
And I formed a bunch of opinions about the town and about the people in it that were like, surely that couldn't be. Because a whole place can't be like, weird town, where the stranger wanders in and all the people are in the bar and they all shut up when he looks at them. And they tell you don't go into the house on the hill. It's like that. And then you go away and you think, no, I was wrong. That's insane thinking. I'm paranoid. I imagined that stuff. That couldn't be the reason for why so-and-so was acting like, could it? And then you find out later on the track that you were exactly on track with a lot of this stuff. Not specifically on track, but that you could, that some of your worst nightmares were real at the time, and you think, now this is what I mean by actually starting to swim up or downstream with the rest of the salmon, eventually, if you stay here long enough.
Yeah.
You'll find yourself doing that. And you have to, there's a way of doing it without doing it. And that takes time. And it takes relaxation.
Not being uncomfortable about...
Not being uncomfortable. Realizing it for what it is.
Projecting.
And understanding what it is. Once you understand it, well, then you're not afraid of it anymore. So you can just walk around it, through it. And then get on with what you tried to get on with in the first place. A place like this can humiliate you. And it can humiliate you, it can be humbling. I mean, it does rip your life to pieces. If you'll let it.
Yeah.
And it's always pounding at the walls. These little guys, these little heathens with no soul downstairs with horns on their head with a battering ram trying to beat your walls in.
Yeah.
But that's your own devils,
Yeah. As a matter of interest, do you think it's easier because you're an outsider who came in?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because it was glaring to me because I was an outsider who came in. But who isn't an outsider?
Hollywood is not calm right now. Behind the premieres, the red carpets, and the perfectly curated Instagram posts, insiders say the industry is scrambling. In just a matter of weeks, a wave of resurfaced documentaries, long-buried interviews, and newly circulated court documents have ignited conversations Hollywood has tried to bury for decades. And suddenly, names that once felt untouchable are being discussed openly again, not just on fringe forums, but across mainstream platforms. At the center of this renewed storm is Mel Gibson. Old clips of Gibson speaking candidly about Hollywood have gone viral again, and viewers are stunned by how relevant his words sound today. Years ago, Gibson described Hollywood as a place that quietly reshapes people, not all at once, but slowly, subtly, until you barely recognize yourself. According to Gibson, when newcomers first arrive, they're celebrated. They're praised for being authentic, fresh, and real. But that charm, he suggested, doesn't last. Over time, expectations creep in, pressure builds, lines blur. At the time, many dismissed his comments as exaggeration, bitterness, or paranoia. Now, some are asking, was he warning us? This renewed interest comes amid another major catalyst, the latest circulation of the Epstein court documents. While many of the names and associations have been publicly known for years, online researchers claim newly released or resurfaced documents raised fresh questions about how deeply Epstein was embedded across multiple elite circles: politics, finance, royalty, media, entertainment. What has captured public attention isn't just who appears in photos or flight logs, It's how normalized those connections seemed. Figures like Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew have long been associated with Epstein in documented ways, something widely reported by mainstream media. But as social media users dig deeper, attention has shifted toward the broader ecosystem, including Hollywood's proximity to wealth, power, and influence. At the same time, renewed interest in a recent documentary involving Sean Diddy Combs has fueled speculation about elite party culture, gatekeeping, and who gets access to which rooms. While no single narrative explains everything, the overlapping themes have created a sense that multiple worlds may have been operating under similar rules. And that's where Mel Gibson's words hit differently. Gibson once described Hollywood as a place where instincts are dulled, where behaviors that once seemed unthinkable gradually become normalized. He spoke about confusion, about sensing that something wasn't right even when no one would explain why. According to Gibson, it wasn't obvious at first. It felt like paranoia, like imagination, until years later when patterns became clearer. After facing controversy and backlash, Gibson stepped away from Hollywood entirely for a time. He returned to Australia, focusing on farming, family, and life far removed from the industry machine. Supporters say he was escaping something toxic. Critics argue he was avoiding accountability for unrelated issues. But regardless of interpretation, one thing is undeniable. He left and he spoke. And now, people are listening again. Especially after Gibson publicly supported Sound of Freedom, a film about child trafficking that became a lightning rod for controversy. Supporters claim the film exposed a global issue many prefer not to confront. Critics argued it was politicized and sensationalized. Still, questions lingered. Why did some platforms appear reluctant to promote it? Why did Disney quietly shelve it before its eventual release elsewhere? Online commentators say these decisions reinforce the belief that certain topics make powerful people uncomfortable. Whether that's true or not, the reaction was undeniable. The conversation exploded, and Mel Gibson wasn't the only one whose past warnings resurfaced. When people say, "Why didn't anyone warn us?" the truth is, many did. The problem is, almost nobody wanted to listen. Long before social media turned every scandal into a trending topic, there were insiders who claimed they tried to speak out about Hollywood's darker side. Their warnings weren't delivered in perfect sound bites. They came in broken interviews, emotional outbursts, uncomfortable silences, and statements that were easy to dismiss at the time. One of the most persistent voices has been Corey Feldman. For decades, Feldman has publicly claimed that abuse was widespread among child performers in Hollywood, especially during the 1980s and 1990s. He has repeatedly said that the entertainment industry created an environment where children were surrounded by adults with unchecked power over their careers, finances, and futures. According to Feldman, fame didn't protect young stars. It isolated them. He has spoken extensively about his close friendship with Corey Haim, his co-star and best friend, and how their shared experiences as child actors exposed them to people Feldman says no child should ever have been around. Feldman has claimed that what happened to Haim was not an isolated incident, but part of a pattern that Hollywood refused to confront. It's important to say this clearly. Feldman has framed these statements as his personal experiences and beliefs, not legal conclusions. He has also explained why he avoids naming certain individuals, saying the legal and personal risks are simply too high. Critics argue that Feldman's claims are difficult to verify. Supporters argue that his consistency over decades makes his warnings impossible to ignore. And Feldman isn't the only one. In recent years, comedian Cat Williams reignited public debate after a series of viral interviews in which he questioned how Hollywood truly operates. In his own exaggerated comedic style, Williams suggested that success in the industry often comes with unspoken expectations that test how far someone is willing to go to belong. His remarks about humiliation, conformity, and power dynamics weren't framed as accusations, but as commentary. Still, they struck a nerve. Clips spread rapidly across YouTube, TikTok, and X. Millions debated whether Williams was joking, exaggerating, or hinting at something deeper. The fact that so many people related to his message says a lot about public perception of Hollywood today. Joe Rogan added fuel to the conversation, describing Hollywood as an incentive-based ecosystem. According to Rogan, people don't always act out of malice, but out of fear of losing access, relevance, or opportunity. Again, these are opinions. But when multiple voices echo similar themes, people start asking questions. Then there's the Epstein connection, an issue that refuses to fade. As Epstein-related documents and reports resurfaced, attention returned to the sheer scale of his social network. For years, investigative journalists have documented Epstein's connections across politics, finance, royalty, and entertainment. Celebrities such as Michael Jackson, Naomi Campbell, Chris Tucker, Kevin Spacey, Mick Jagger, and Richard Branson have all been mentioned in connection with Epstein-related photos, events, or social circles at various points. Many of these individuals have denied wrongdoing, and no accusation applies equally to all. But the public's concern isn't limited to individual guilt. It's about access. How did Epstein gain entry into so many elite spaces? Why was he welcomed in environments that prided themselves on image and reputation? Some commentators believe Hollywood didn't just coexist with powerful networks, it overlapped with them. Others argue this interpretation goes too far. Still, the questions remain. Whenever someone challenges the system, consequences often follow. Careers stall, reputations suffer. Credibility is questioned, support dries up. To skeptics, this is coincidence. To others, it looks like a pattern repeated over generations. And the longer this conversation continues, the harder it becomes to dismiss.
Is built into the ingredients list. It's like if you want flour, you need you're gonna have to get the beat. And if you want to be able to make movies about certain subjects, you have to be willing to work with some people. You know, it'd be nice if you made it so that this is what we're trying to accomplish, and this is showing the negative side of this other society, and this is our hero. Because our hero is going to go do America's bidding and go over there and like, okay. And those movies are successful. And so they continue this relationship and become a bit of a propaganda arm for the government. And in turn, they'll with you.
Right. But that's what makes information so powerful is you don't care how people feel about the ritual. It's about just following the ritual work.
Yeah.
And so you can fool yourself into thinking there isn't one, but the evidence will be clear. So like when I was like, oh, these guys were wearing dresses. Yeah, everybody's like, oh, he keeps talking about people wearing dresses. No, it's not like that. Look at it from a different way. Look at it. Show me one person that ever wore a dress in Hollywood unsuccessfully. That's how you understand what a ritual is.
So now we arrive at the moment that Hollywood has always tried to avoid. Not a scandal, not a headline, not even a lawsuit, but something far more dangerous to any powerful system: sustained attention. For decades, the entertainment industry has survived controversy by outlasting it. A story breaks, outrage erupts, statements are released, and then, slowly but surely, the spotlight moves on. Another movie premieres. Another celebrity trend takes over. Another distraction fills the timeline. And eventually, people forget. That strategy worked for a very long time, but it's not working anymore. Because today, nothing truly disappears. Old interviews don't fade into obscurity. Archived footage doesn't stay buried. Statements made 20 or 30 years ago are now being replayed, clipped, shared, and re-examined by millions of people at once, people who weren't even alive when those words were first spoken. And that's why this moment feels different. Not because Hollywood has suddenly changed overnight, but because the audience has. We are living in an era where people don't just consume stories, they investigate them. They compare timelines. They notice contradictions. They connect dots that once seemed unrelated. And when the same themes keep appearing across decades, across different people, different genres, different levels of fame, it becomes harder to dismiss everything as coincidence. That's where we are right now. When people hear Mel Gibson's old interviews describing Hollywood as a place that slowly diverts you from who you were, when they revisit Corey Feldman's long-standing claims about what he believes happened to child performers, when they watch Cat Williams openly question the industry's unspoken rules, they're not necessarily accepting every claim as fact. What they're doing is something far more unsettling for powerful institutions. They're listening, and listening leads to questioning. Questioning leads to scrutiny, and scrutiny changes the balance of power. For years, Hollywood thrived on the idea that the public needed it more than it needed the public, that access to fame, influence, and cultural relevance flowed in one direction. If someone didn't like how things worked, they could simply be replaced. But that assumption no longer holds. Audiences today have endless alternatives: independent creators, streaming platforms, long-form podcasts, social media, decentralized voices. Hollywood is no longer the sole gatekeeper of culture, and that shift has consequences. One of those consequences is that trust has eroded. Not just trust in individuals, but trust in systems, in public relations, in official narratives, in the idea that if something were really wrong, we would have heard about it already. Because now people understand something fundamental. Silence doesn't always mean nothing happened. Sometimes it means someone didn't feel safe speaking. That realization alone changes everything. And this doesn't mean every accusation is true. It doesn't mean every rumor is valid. It doesn't mean every name mentioned deserves suspicion. What it means is that blind faith is gone. People want transparency instead of polish, context instead of slogans, history instead of headlines. They want to understand how power actually works, not just how it's marketed. Hollywood, like any powerful system, depends on perception, on image, on belief, on the idea that what happens on screen reflects aspiration, not exploitation, glamour, not coercion, opportunity, not pressure. But once people start questioning the machinery behind the curtain, the illusion weakens. Because power is fragile. It only exists as long as people believe in it. And belief can crack quietly at first, through skepticism, through doubt, through a simple refusal to accept the official explanation without question. That's what we're seeing now. Not a collapse, but a slow erosion. A growing awareness that maybe the stories we were told weren't the full story. That maybe certain conversations were delayed, redirected, or avoided altogether. That maybe some voices were dismissed not because they were wrong, but because they were inconvenient. And again, that doesn't mean every claim holds up. But it does mean the conversation is no longer optional. Hollywood can't simply wait this out the way it used to, because the audience isn't moving on. The clips keep resurfacing, the interviews keep circulating, the names keep coming up, and the questions keep getting louder. What happens when enough people stop asking, "Who should we believe?" and start asking, "Why does this keep happening?" That's the moment systems begin to shift, and that's why this feels like a turning point. Not because we suddenly have all the answers, but because more people are willing to ask the questions. Will this lead to real accountability, real transparency, real change? Or will it become another chapter in a long history of unresolved controversy? That part hasn't been written yet. But what has changed is this. The silence is broken. And once awareness spreads, it doesn't reverse. People remember now. People archive now. People connect dots now. And whether Hollywood likes it or not, the era of unquestioned authority is over. This doesn't mean the industry disappears. It means it evolves or resists. And history shows us that resistance only delays the inevitable. So as this conversation continues, through interviews, documentaries, court filings, commentary, and cultural debate, one thing is certain: the spotlight isn't going away this time. Because this story isn't about one person. It's not about one allegation. It's not even about one industry. It's about power, silence, and what happens when people decide they're done looking away. And if this video made you pause, if it made you reflect, If it made you see old stories, old warnings, and old footage in a new light, then make sure to like this video. It helps more people find it. Share it so others can hear the conversation and decide for themselves. And subscribe to I Love Gossip for more deep dives, long-form breakdowns, and stories the mainstream can't stop talking about. Turn on notifications, because this conversation is far from over. And trust me, we're only at the beginning. I'll see you in the next one.